Well, my name's Barbara, as Joe said. I originally, with the opticians, got told that I had a freckle about 12 years ago when they first picked it up. A few years later, I swapped opticians because I swapped jobs, so it was closer to a different branch, and they said I had a nevus. So I was like, oh, is a nevus the same as a freckle? Because they've already told me I've got this freckle. At the time, nothing to worry about, we've just got to keep an eye on it. So I carried on going. Every year they told me it was still there, seemed okay. And then they brought in the OCT test, where they do the scan of your eye. And from there, the optician suddenly went, oh, I think it's changing slightly. They still don't think it's anything to worry about, but I'll just send you along to the hospital just for them to check. They still didn't think it was anything to worry about, so I'm just thinking, it's a little birthmark, because they'd also said it was a birthmark on my eye at one point. Nothing to worry about. They sent me off to Moorfields, still telling me nothing to worry about, where Moorfields done a load of tests, sat me in a room and went, okay, you have cancer and you need to have these treatments. Which one would you like? I'm like, whoa, hold on. What happened there? I came to London this morning thinking I've just got a little mark on my eye to this diagnosis. Me being me, because I like to research things, I like to know everything there is to know, though I'm aware I don't. So well, what are you basing it on? And they had nothing to base it on because it was my first set of photos at Moorfields, and they'd like to get the photos through from the opticians. So I actually then turned around and said, well, based on something that you're not 100% sure on, you wish to change my life, basically, and give me this diagnosis. What will happen if I wait a little while? To which she went, oh, it's very slow growing. That would be fine. So I said, well, that's what I'm going to do. You do some more photos in 3 months and we'll try it that way. And also I needed, I think, to just digest what I'd just been told. My nevus, or at the time, my nevus was very small. And it was borderline. The consultant said sometimes they look at them and they can tell instantly that it is or isn't. And mine was borderline. He said, I really don't know. So I'm thinking, okay. They then monitored it for a year before they said, oh, actually, I think it is starting to grow. And I'm still like, this think is still coming into this. I'd like a bit of positivity, but so I went ahead and had the plaque therapy during lockdown. Felt very, very isolated because they literally just shut me in a room. There was no visitors. Big sign on the door saying radioactive, do not enter. And then I went home. And after my eyes settled down a few weeks later, I'm sort of, did I actually dream all of that took place? And if it wasn't for the fact that my eyesight was all over the place, I could have quite happily believed that I'd dreamt the lot. At that point, I had no contact with anybody else. And then luckily, I found Ocular and joined them and realised that actually, yeah, this is life now.
And that must have been, well, I think just that whole time, isn't it, when you kind of, there's uncertainty and it's optician, appointments to appointments. That kind of time feels so surreal anyway, but during lockdown,
yes,
every day felt surreal, didn't it? It was just really bizarre. So I can imagine actually just that feeling of when you come home, did that really happen?
Yeah, because it was, I know other people that have had different cancers and they've got to know people through the chemo and the departments at the hospital, and so they kind of have had this interaction. I went down to London, came back, apart from a bit of a bloodshot eye, looked exactly the same. And it was like, is this actually... So in a way, it still didn't feel like I'd had cancer, or I had cancer, because it was no different than having popped down and just had any small procedure done. So it felt very, very surreal and very, very isolating, because you don't know of anybody else at that point. I knew there was somebody else down at Moorfields having the same treatment because I heard him get discharged. But I hadn't seen a soul. apart from the people that came in, put the drops in my eyes and brought me dinner, if you can describe it as dinner, but they brought me food. So yeah, it was very isolating.
Yeah.
And not a lot of information. Moorfields don't give out an awful lot, really. They give you this little printed, photocopied couple of pages that didn't really at the time feel like it belonged to me. And that was the start of that. I was going to have to be seen every 6 months, and I needed to have surveillance on my liver. And they said ultrasound. Having then found Ocular and also all the various different websites that I'd been on and read, I thought, I don't know about ultrasound. My first ultrasound I went to, they didn't give me any results. I just went in, they gave me an ultrasound and I left. And like 3 weeks later when I saw a doctor, I'm like, what happened with my ultrasound? Didn't realise they actually could have told me there and then that everything looked fine. I spoke to my doctor, who absolutely brilliantly, the first thing she said to me, I know nothing about this, I will be led by you. She said, I will find some information on it, but I need you to tell me at the moment what you need. And one of the things I do suffer with is anxiety. And I said, I would really like to have MRIs, at least to start with. And they agreed and referred me to Addenbrooke's, which, as you know, is a cancer specialist hospital, not necessarily in eye cancer, but cancer specialist. And that has done wonders for my for my anxiety. I don't have to worry about my scans, they get automatically done. As soon as I've had the results for one, I get the appointment for the next one. So it's all running quite well. MRIs are definitely, I think, the gold standard. And there's not that many of us, and I think we all deserve the gold standard. And as far as I know, for at least 5 years, I will have MRIs. And I have an active medical oncologist who only this week phoned me about a trial that's coming up. And would I like to be part of it? So I feel much more supported than just with my local eye hospital that are willing to look at my eye. The first time I went, the gentleman I saw, the consultant, he was lovely, he told me lots of things. The second time I went, the consultant didn't really seem to know, and I actually had to be the one that said about having the high definition photographs and the scans, and his words were, oh, it looks about the same. Lovely, thank you. You know, looks about the same. I want to know that you've got both pictures up and you've looked at them quite thoroughly and said it looks exactly the same. I don't think they realise just how much anxiety and stress that these things cause. It's to them, it looks about the same. It's fine. Off you go. You'll see in 6 months.
Yeah, it's hard at the moment, isn't there? Because I think we have a talk later on around the guidelines, and you know there's been work happening around the sort of information, because sometimes people get too little, too much, not at the right time. So yeah, I think there's lots of sort of differences in the way people are supported around the country, which I think we would all agree would be nice if that can become more standard and a bit more clear. And the Melanoma Focus supported a review of the guidelines last year, and this year's been ongoing, so that's sort of now come into fruition. We'll touch on that a bit today, and I think sort of for future talks we can then sort of, throughout the year we'll do lots of sort of like Zoom talks, actually looking at what evidence they've considered, what are their recommendations. So I think that's an area that we can definitely pick up on, because I think that's a whole huge topic, isn't it? Mm-hmm. How quickly was it after you had treatment to then sort of finding us or talking to other people?
I didn't have very much time beforehand. I just done general reading more than anything else. I got quite a bit of information from some of the American websites and the European ones. Then came across, in fact I didn't find Ocular until just afterwards, just happened to come across a forum, and I thought somebody had mentioned it, and I thought, oh, we've actually got our own UK one, and started reading that. I do have a thirst for knowledge. I love to find out if something affects me or my sort of immediate family. I love to find out exactly what's going on. So it was probably 6 weeks, 2 months down the line that I actually found Ocular and found that there was all you lovely people all just in my computer. You all just live there. And then there was a topic that came up on one of the Monday night groups that I wanted to know more about. So I was very brave and joined an online chat, sort of the Not a Book Club. And yeah, didn't really look back from there. I ended up being talked into being an ambassador.
Don't know who would have done that. You know, it must have been one of you guys.
No, probably the same person that only last week said, would you do a talk at the conference? Yeah, loads of notice. Is our Jo, but we've got to love her.
Absolutely.
We know she gets everything. She's so busy. Yeah, we really do appreciate everything that you do for our community.
I think it's a really easy job to do because, you know, yes, it's a crappy situation that people find themselves in, but I think, you know, if today is one of the first conferences that you've been to, you'll go away sort of quite different and actually even just know that you've got another sort of family around you. So I think from that point of view, it's the best job in the world. And it keeps us busy. You know, we've got to do something, so why not this? Yeah. Well, so soon after, because we did do the sort of Monday night, we did the Not a Book Club, and we're going to give special thanks later this afternoon to a very lovely lady, Audrey, that spearheaded that group up for us. And again, she had a huge thirst for knowledge and sort of really understanding, actually, why does X, Y, and Z happen? You know, let's look a bit more into this topic. So yeah, that's how we initially sort of got to meet you through there.
Yes.
And then you became one of our shining local ambassadors. Can you tell us a little bit about that and why you...
The ambassador role was really just to try to manage some local meetings throughout the year, and we had one that was very successful. Lots of people came over to Bury from the East Anglia region, and we had a lovely dinner. That's Bury St Edmunds, not Bury up near Manchester, a bit too far to go. And then obviously with COVID and everything, it's been quite difficult. So yeah, I think it's something that now we're through COVID, we're going to start trying to get together again, maybe every couple of months. It can be a dinner, it could be an afternoon, and literally just sort of try to have like, not a mini conference because we won't have speakers, but just little get-togethers. We have managed, when we've had somebody join at the time, me and Audrey actually went and met up with some newbies and sort of tried to make them feel welcome. I actually tried to combine this with a caring role. I look after my mother 24/7, 7 days a week. I used to get a bit more time off. At the moment, last night was my first night away from her since one night in March. So trying to combine the two at the moment is getting quite difficult. But yeah, we'll get there. Just the dynamics of trying to do the caring and all her appointments or my appointments, finding people that can look after her if I have to go for certain things. It can be challenging, but we are hoping to set up the ambassador in so that we make contact with local people and try to get them in contact with other local people so they don't feel so alone. Ideally, we'd like to find people when they're very first diagnosed, so that they can feel supported right from the start.
Yeah. So not that we've coaxed you all here under false pretenses, but you will see a list out the front. So if you're interested, if you know somewhere that actually a nice little restaurant sort of near you, that would be nice to sort of hold an event in, we can, so we can set you up as a local ambassador, and then you can host meetings in your local area, just so that, we'll advertise it with our membership, and hopefully, just get some more meetups going, because I think it's really important, isn't it?
Being a local ambassador sounds like it's going to be a lot of hard work. It really isn't. It's no different than organising, going out for a meal with a big group of friends, really. You just pick the day, pick the venue, invite everybody and hope that a decent amount of people can come and join you, and nice Sunday afternoon in the sunshine or whatever, and having a dinner.
Brilliant. Well, does anyone have any questions for Barbara about sort of her experience or how she juggles caring?
Helen is also one of our local ambassadors, so her experience is slightly different to mine.
Yeah, I was just going to say I'm based in Chester, and I had set up a few meetings, and then for personal reasons things changed. But I'm, along with you, I'm very happy to start setting up meetings wherever people want to meet, really. And I'd like to know how and where people would like to meet. I'd like to sort of try and make it accessible to people up around the northwest. I'm based in Chester, so I'd like a bit of feedback from people here, what would suit them, and I will try and facilitate that and arrange things. So.
And I'm hoping that we might get sort of, 20, 30 people around the country, not, patients and also family members. So I don't know what I'm doing, why that keeps happening. If we can have 20, 30 people around, then it just means that, everyone's able to just meet up for a coffee and just sort of see other people. And it makes it just an easier time, really.
So I'd like to echo what Helen said. Even though I'm based in Suffolk, obviously we're in that little bit, so Suffolk, Essex, Norfolk. If people say to me, we'd like a meeting over nearer ours, I'm quite happy within a sort of an hour and a half drive to travel to the different areas and then maybe do them more often. I think the trouble with staying in one area is how many people want to come each time. Whereas if you've slightly changed it, then hopefully we'll gather a whole range of new people each time.
Can you hear me? There's a lot of people missing here today, but I know on the Ocular Facebook page or group there is a map that someone has done instructions of how to add your location onto. So I will pin there's now a QR code, because everything's accessible by a QR code. I'll also put basic non-binary instructions of how to add your location, and it'll just make it easier, but more than happy to help set up kind of a 50-mile radius for each ambassador, so that it's easier access.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you to David in the corner there. If you want to pop your hand up, David. He's the mastermind behind that work, how that works. So thank you for doing that. So for anyone that doesn't know, there's a patient support group, and David's put together a map so you can add your postcode so we can see where everybody is if people wanted to meet up. Over to you, Jane, and then we can welcome up Dimmy.
Can everyone hear me okay? So what I was saying, because until I was a bit poorly a month or so ago, I'd sort of tentatively discussed in group about being an ambassador at the North East. And I'm just wondering and just putting it out there, and I'm not looking in anyone's direction in particular, but if anyone would like to be a deputy with me on organising something, looking that way. I know where she lives. That's the all. It would be good, because what I'd suggested was maybe doing a meetup at somewhere like York, because a bit like London, all trains seem to go through York. But I'd just like to put it out there. Unfortunately, I do have some times where I'm not that good, and I'm quite happy to do a lot of the work. But if any of you are interested, either message me or Joe or whoever, and we'll get something sorted, because all I can say is being here today and being on the online meetings and stuff, that meeting other people in this situation is so therapeutic. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh. Well, thank you, Barbara. We will let you off so you can relax for the rest of the day. But yeah, thank you for sort of sharing your situation with us, and especially for the last minute ask. So really appreciate that.